Dan Binks, longtime racing crew chief, author, as it turns out, as well. Staple of the Corvette program and Tommy Kendall's career. If you could describe this Dinner with Racers in one word, what would it be?
This is where you say it.
Oh, that's where I say it.
Yeah.
I thought I already said it.
No,
you were just setting it up. You were giving me the ball, and I dropped it.
Right, correct. Dan Binks, Corvette crew chief, team manager, sports car racing legend. Tommy Kendall, longtime friend and crew chief. If you could describe this Dinner with Racers in one word, what would it be?
Exciting.
Exciting.
I was eating fries, but yeah, good.
We're playing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now for Dinner with Racers, presented by
Continental Tire.
with your hosts, Ryan Eversley and Sean Heckman.
Placeholder radio sound. I'm a driver. I'm very angry. This is the sound of a driver on the radio during a race.
What do you think I should order?
And welcome to Dinner with Racers, Season 2. I am one of your hosts, Sean Heckman. Driving the car right next to me is Ryan Eversley, and we are on our way to Los Angeles International Airport to drop Ryan off because we've just ended a 40-day trek across 29 states covering 12,000 miles to bring you, the listener, 28 free podcasts that hopefully you enjoy. Anyway, all of this was made possible courtesy of this Honda Odyssey that we are currently driving with. Hey, Ryan, what kind of tires?
Continental Tire.
Cross Contact LX20s. For those who don't know who Dan Binks is, he is an absolute legend within the folklore of Corvette Racing. But in addition to that, he's had a number of sports car successes in Trans Am and working for Jack Roush and Tommy Kendall and a whole bunch of accolades over effectively a 3-decade career.
Total legend. The guy is known everywhere we go. In fact, last year when we did Season 1, almost everyone we talked to at some point said, you got to get Binks. So he was on our radar for a long time. It was a little unique bar we went to that was kind of like a hole in the wall. What was it called?
The Hamburg Pub.
And it was kind of like a small town, I don't want to say biker bar, but it had that vibe to it, but everybody was super friendly. And the funny thing was is that Dan isn't known around there as being a racer. He's literally just Dan from down the street. So when we call and say, hey, we have a racer podcast thing we're doing and we need headsets, they're all like, people generally ask, who's the racer? Like, who's the person? And his friends there were surprised to find out it's Dan.
Yeah.
So we kind of outed him to the locals, but maybe now he'll get some free beer at the pub. I had the turkey club sandwich, which was the size of my head.
And I had the chicken sandwich, which was equally delightful. So let's take it. Dan Binks.
All right, we're going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Killer. This is like right where
Hey, Sean.
Good to see you.
So there's about 3 people that know that I race here. That's
Okay.
Oh. So are we outing you then by making you wear a headset?
all right.
All right. All right, let's have you put that on when you're comfortable.
So I talked to TK.
Oh boy.
Oh, here.
50th birthday.
Yeah, right. Well, then I guess you know our source on a couple things that we're about to ask you.
Yeah, he already warned me.
So yeah, I was gonna say we have it on good authority.
Yeah.
That was it Saturday that you have won yet another big race in your career?
Yeah.
That chump car race at Road America.
Yep.
So
That was cool.
So it was what, F-body Camaro? Is that what?
Yeah. So I had a Supra to start with, and I got so much grief on the internet about working on Chevys and having a.
Let me have you pull the mic just a little away. Yeah, that's good.
And I got a bunch of grief about the Supra.
Right.
So I had to buy a Chevy, and then I don't know if you heard of the deal about when they took the engine.
No, tell us.
So
Tell us how you
So
got in trouble in chump car.
So it was
Was it
Lemons at the
Okay.
time when we
Okay.
were doing it. So we show up, and they take my engine apart before the race starts.
Before, yeah.
Now, do they know who you are?
So when I first raced with the Supra, they didn't know who we were, and we won Toledo by 200 laps. So I think after that they were a little bit suspicious of what was going on.
Right.
So then I did the Camaro, and it made like $350 to the tires.
Nice
For
lemons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They didn't,
Against
they
like
didn't
Toyota
that.
Gacelicas from 1986.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
All
a
right.
Ford Escort, front-wheel drive.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then I heard the rumor was you guys are going like 155 miles an hour at Road America.
No, we went 148.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
only.
Only
Yeah,
148.
only 148.
Only
Yeah.
faster than half the cars that race there.
Yeah, in GT3.
You're
So-
right.
Yeah. So that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but. And now with that EC class, you can run whatever you want and not get in trouble. So.
Okay. Because I heard that you did a Lemons race before this where you were, they do what's called the claim.
Yep, so they said they were going to take my engine.
Right, okay.
And they were really, over the top about taking my engine.
And this is Lemons. So Lemons' whole deal is you're spending $500 on the car.
Yeah.
They emphatically say you can't build a cheater car.
Right.
And if they think you spent more than $500,
they can take your stuff, they can
claim
smash it, they can do whatever.
Exactly.
Right?
And the logic is they'll give you $500 to buy it from you. And if you spent more than that, well, that's on you.
That's
Which
your
you're
problem.
only supposed to spend.
Yeah, so I got the
$500.
engine for free.
Right.
AER built the engine. No, I got it for free. So a little plug for AER. So the thing was awesome, and they, like I said, they took it apart and saw that there was real race parts in it.
Weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Weird.
Where'd those come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no big deal. It was only a 406, No big deal.
Yeah, no hashtag. Just
Running a 406.
So they tell us they're going to take it, and I said, no problem. If you guys need to save face by taking this thing, at least let us race, and then I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
No big deal. So I was racing with my kid, and, we ripped around and had a good time, and they gave us a 200-lap penalty and, just all the Lemons stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end, we went to the driver's meeting, and they said, well, we're going to take your engine. I was like, I know, you told me you were going to. So I waited, and they came down and said, well, how come you didn't leave? And I said, I want to race. My kid and I race here. We have a good time,
Yeah.
I probably overdid it this time, and I get it. If you
Because I
need
assume normally when they claim a car, like the second the checkered flag falls, the car's in the
leave.
hauler and they take off so that no one claims anything.
Yeah, so I didn't want to do that.
Sure.
I knew I was playing out of the rules anyways, so if they had to take an engine, it's no big deal. AER said they'd give me another one. So
Fine, take it. Yeah. Yeah, this is Lemons Racing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So now we're in jump car, and they have EC, and you can't get in trouble there.
Right.
Well,
so
you can
EC
get in
is like their unlimited?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just had some fun, Justin Smith and a couple other guys, Aaron. And we just have fun. They bought my old car, and I drive with them, and we have some fun. And he helps my camp some. So it's a good deal all around for all of us.
Yeah.
Actually, Tommy was mentioning your camp. So you support a sort of a children's camp out in Wisconsin.
Right.
Tell me about that.
So long story short, my dad went there in the 40s and went there
And
for
this is like
about-
right next to Elkhart Lake.
Yep, so it's literally 3 miles from if you're standing in the pit lane and you look towards turn 14, it's right there.
What's it called?
Okay.
It's called Anakiji.
Anakiji.
Yep. So, anyways, my dad went there. I went there in 74 and 76. And when my dad retired in 85, he would go there and volunteer like a week at a time. He's from Racine, but he lives in California now. And so camp got in trouble. It was owned by the YMCA, and they went bankrupt. The YMCA of Racine went bankrupt. And we were able to borrow some money from some racers and NBA basketball player Jim McIlvain.
Okay.
And we were able to purchase it or get enough money where we could actually get a loan and buy it. So we borrowed a lot of money. At the beginning, we were paying $1,000 a day in interest.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that'll get your attention.
Yeah,
right.
But anyways, we have about 3,000 kids that come to summer camp in 9 weeks, and it's really fulfilling. You know, our life, your guys' life is fast-paced. We're always doing stuff, and I probably didn't need more in my life, but I tell people no good deed goes unpunished.
Absolutely.
Right?
And this is just a typical YMCA-style children's camp?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have Christian values. We don't, we're not on anyone. We believe you should be nice every day and do the best thing you can. And, we have like 55 horses, 40 boats, canoes, paddle boards.
And Tommy was saying beyond fundraising, like you still go down there and fix
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's
awesome.
fun for me. I get my golf cart out, and
Okay.
I take my daughter or my son, and we'll go, a gate will be broken somewhere, or a bath, the toilet's not working or whatever. One day we were there in the summer and got a one of the sinks in the kitchen was messed up, and I was down there laying on the ground trying to get it fixed.
Right.
You know, it's just never ending.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Yeah. Old farmhouse, basically.
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
Someday you should get there.
Is there a website for people to go to that we can push for you?
Yep. So Anokiji, ANOKIJIG. So it's campanokiji.com.
Okay.
And you can go there, and if you click on the website, there's places where you can help, donate. If you have an old tractor, we're always looking for
all right. Yeah.
anything. So
Sure.
I found out a long time ago, if you don't ask, you don't get. So.
Have you thought about doing like a bring the drivers over kind of thing for
We have
IMSA or World
we
Challenge?
have done some of that. It's been mixed. You know, they're there. The kids are there. They don't really understand the racing yet.
Sure.
We've tried bringing a couple of groups of kids over, which has worked. And we have a big auction there every year at the Corvette Corral. So
Cool. Sweet. So it's campanokiji.com.
Yep.
And you can donate or
You can do whatever you want
on
there.
the
Yep.
site.
Yep.
So
And if you want to come by and check it out at some time, you can just go to the office and they'll give you a tour.
Cool. We can link that in your profile on our website.
Okay.
So they can go right to it, click on it, go dinnerwithracers.com, Dan Binks episode.
Boom.
There you go.
There it is.
Cool. So so speaking of golf carts,
Go for it.
because you said you knew right away.
Yeah.
We were told that you had an incident in a golf cart at Lime Rock.
Yeah, so we used to not be able to race on Sunday in Lime Rock.
Yeah.
So everybody played golf, literally everybody.
Yeah.
And Tommy, in those days, you could drink and hang
By the
out.
way, we haven't addressed it. Tommy, when all of us talk about Tommy, we're talking about Tommy Kendall.
We're talking about Tommy Kendall, right?
The Tommy Kendall.
Tommy Kendall. Yeah, I knew him before he was something.
Right. He's just cocky.
Yeah.
Now he's cocky and successful.
Yeah, before his chicken car and all that stuff.
Right. Oh, no, you can totally cuss on this show. We bleep everything,
Yeah.
and it makes it funnier.
All right. So we show up to the golf course, and it's probably 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we were up
AM.
late in AM.
AM, yeah,
So we're gonna golf, and we show up with a big cooler and 3 clubs, and so we take off, and it's dewy on the golf course there, and we're screwing around and spinning out and all that.
Yeah.
And finally, it just gets elevated faster and faster spin outs. And finally, the thing goes end for end. Tommy gets his leg stuck between the tire and the golf cart, hurts himself, and the thing lands on top of me, and the muffler burns my back until the skin's falling off.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was pretty funny.
And you
until
got to race
then.
the next day, right? So
And then, that was Sunday, so Monday's the race.
Yeah.
how do you answer to the boss when you do something like that?
Yeah, we were pretty good, so they didn't mess with us very much. I
Right,
mean, they,
right.
that was a bad idea, but
Right.
but
But you still showed up for work. So.
Yeah.
Is that how it is now over at the
No,
at the shop?
it's not so much like that anymore. Yeah.
I'm just saying, now you're kind of the guy in charge, right? So, if
Well-
a kid goes out and does something that, the 22-year-old shop kid.
We have that happen, and, you'd have to go talk to them and explain to them that, we really are supposed to be doing the right job, and when you come in the morning, you shouldn't be hungover,
Right,
whatever.
right.
But there'll be days like that,
Yeah.
All right.
Bill Riley says he has a 2-drink minimum, but a 2-drink maximum as well
Yeah.
for his crew guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of a Bud Light. I like both types, Bud and Bud Light.
But
so.
heavy. Yeah.
So speaking of Bud Light, it's the bar here,
Yeah.
It's
which
awesome.
is this is probably our most character-driven place we've been in our
Really?
whole road trip. Yeah. Oh, we
Yeah,
love.
yeah.
As soon as
This
I
place
walked
is
in, I was like,
killer.
oh, this is gonna
Yeah, he
work.
came out, gave me a nod, like, we're good.
This is gonna be
Yeah.
So
good.
this place is awesome. We used to go to the one down the street,
Right.
and a guy named Brandon used to run this thing, and he was super cool.
Right.
And we met him a couple times and said, we'll switch to this one, and we come for karaoke, which is a riot. I don't
Right.
sing. My wife doesn't sing. My daughter sings, but she won't sing here.
Okay.
So my daughter sang for the Pope.
Oh, wow. So she's good.
She can really sing.
And she won't-
And she
she
will
won't
not
lower
sing
herself
here.
to
No. So, but anyways, it's just a riot.
Right.
Same people all the time. We,
Yeah.
we come here, and there's a shooting club down the street. We shoot there. We shoot archery
Okay.
and guns, and come here afterwards and have drinks with everybody and have a good time.
And I assume here at the Hamburg Pub,
Yeah.
you're just another guy with a mustache. Like you're not.
That's
You're
right.
not
No,
Mr. Corvette Le Mans.
I fit right in here. I
Yeah.
got a jacked up pickup, and I fit right in.
Right,
They don't know Dan Binks. They
Right.
know Dan, and
Sure.
They knew who you were, but they didn't really know what we were.
Yeah, like
what
why
they're
are
like,
we here
oh,
with
okay.
headsets?
and like
Yeah.
I said, there's only a few people that know.
Yeah.
And there's one guy that walked up to me and said, why are you here?
Right.
And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, I know who you are. And it was like, yeah, whatever. This is where I hang out.
Having a beer.
That's
Yeah.
right. I come here on Tuesday nights for Taco Tuesday and
Well,
whatever.
so Monday nights, which is what we're doing now.
Coney's.
It's
Yeah,
at Coney's.
Coney's.
It's also trivia night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we in or what?
We could try. I'm horrible.
Yeah, well, it'll
That's
be good.
fine.
Yeah,
All
it'll
right.
be good.
All right.
Trivia. My wife will love it. 'Cause
You got to lose at something in life.
that's
so.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not stuffing a V8 in this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I can't win at this for sure.
All right.
Yeah, we were trying to think of like trivia names. So it
names.
was like Dan Binks drinks, something like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys dream up.
Right.
Now, is your speaking of team names, is your nickname Big Daddy?
Yes, it is.
Dude, can anyone call you Big Daddy, or is it you have to earn that? Like we can't just call you Big Daddy.
You
Like
know,
if I see in the pattern, like Big Daddy, I'm getting punched.
not very many people call me Big Daddy
Right.
anymore.
Sure.
Tommy did. Did anybody tell you what Tommy's nickname is?
Oh, I
No.
don't think so.
Yeah, here it
This,
comes.
this is the best.
Gonna take this down.
Tommy's nickname is. So you don't have to share that, but you
No,
can
yes,
if
we
you
do.
want.
All right.
Send him a tweet right now.
And how did this
No.
come about?
You know what? I don't even know exactly how it came out, but it only stuck for when he was driving for us.
Right.
But we
Was it
called
all the?
No, I don't think he had any problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, he had. Sorry, Caroline.
Oh man, we're good.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, we're gonna cut that. But you can call him if you want. He'll think it's funny. And he's the only guy that's tough enough and manly enough to. He just takes it.
Right.
Right. So is this a normal thing, like the call from Tommy on a Monday? Do you guys keep in touch with
Once in a while we'll call if he'll just send me a thing. How fast did it go?
Right.
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 Because he knows it's going to be fast. He just
Yeah.
doesn't know if we're really
this is
stupid
all about
or
the
not.
chump car, lemon car stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's,
I keep trying to get him to drive it. He
Yeah.
won't come.
man, that'd be awesome. How
Yeah.
pissed would you be if you're paddock next to Dan Binks and Tommy Kendall at a
Yeah.
lemons race?
Yeah.
You're like, duh.
Well, there went my Tercel.
Yeah.
So.
Pack it back up.
We're going to have 2 cars next year.
2-car team. Hey, we were talking about getting in
Yeah,
on it.
hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can bring that average down. So have you heard about this show before?
So I hadn't,
Okay.
actually. So I went and I listened to Tommy's.
Oh, cool.
I listened to a couple of them. And, but, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. No, we're really having a lot of fun with it. But our kind of idea was not only like talk to the big shot race car drivers or whatever, but talk to the people that are really the reason the sport goes the way it goes and like is handled the way it's handled. And my car growing up, and to this day, is the Intrepid, GTP car.
It's sort of the best and the worst
It
for
was-
me.
Right. Well, that's kind of what Bill said. He said it was behind its time, but they still got it out there, and it never really got the motor it needed because they wanted to put an F1 engine in it or derived and
Yeah.
the whole thing. But
They actually bought those engines.
really
Yeah.
talk about what it was like working on those cars in that era as well, because that's just like something we probably won't see for a long time in sports car racing.
Yeah, I mean, just to start my career was pretty super fast, right? I mean, it was GTU, Trans Am, and then right into the GTP cars.
Yeah.
I was a pretty young guy to be a crew chief on those cars, and basically at the time it was either Formula One or IndyCar or GTP cars,
Yeah.
and they were unlimited power basically. I
Right.
think our car made about 800 to the tires, which
Right.
is nowadays is not that big, but
Yeah.
in those days it was unheard of.
Right.
And a 1,900-pound car that makes, I don't even know. There was big numbers, 7,000 pounds of downforce, but the thing wouldn't
Right.
go fast enough to make that much.
That's exactly what Bill said.
Yeah. So if it ever would go 200 miles an hour, it would have made that much. So, but almost surreal getting to work on those cars. Chevy program, Tommy driving it, Wayne driving it. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And then that was my introduction to Gary Pratt and Jim Miller. And, after Tommy got hurt, we ran a little bit after that. And then, the P cars were dying,
Yeah.
unfortunately. It cost so much money, right? I mean, Nissan and Toyota and Chevy were spending a lot of money, and they weren't selling any cars.
Sure.
It gets tough.
Yeah.
Now you said you started very young as a crew chief. I mean, what was sort of your path? Did you grow up a racing guy?
So I grew up a racing guy. My dad raced sports racers like D-Sports racers and bug-eyed sprites and things like that. And I would get parts from a guy named Bob Swenson. He owned a company called PBS in L.A. And another guy Jim Bailey was running Phil Connie Racing.
Yeah.
And he called Swenson. He says, "You know any kids around that can work on cars that work for cheap?" And he said, "This Binks kid's all right, And so I went and interviewed him on Tuesday. Moved to L.A. on Thursday, and it was really fast forward from there.
Right.
So it was John Paul Jr. and John Morton at the time.
Yeah.
Big name guys, and Phil was great to me. Phil Connie was unbelievable. I was telling a story the other day to somebody. So I was 20. I turned 21 at Daytona when we were running in February at Daytona that year, and we had come back, and I said, "Hey, Phil, I got a hot date tonight." And Phil was kind of he was a good-looking guy and dressed the part and all that. So about 3:30, 4 o'clock, he comes out and he throws me the keys to his Daytona.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And I said, "Do I have to pick her up?" I wanted to take the car out and rip around. Right. But anyways, I mean, that was just the kind of guy he was. Can you imagine giving your Ferrari Daytona to a 21-year-old kid?
No.
Never going to happen. I'm not doing it,
Right.
Yeah, but say we're a 37-year-old podcast host. Like, it's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
So.
But that's just the kind of guy he was. He said, be careful and have fun, and I saw him before he passed away, and we had a special time, and I told him that was probably the kindest thing somebody had done for me.
Right.
And he was super, to work for too.
Right.
So. And then after that, we went to Clayton Cunningham. So I worked on Jack Baldwin's RX-7.
Right.
Tommy actually has it, or I actually have it at my building.
And Tommy says when you were the guy there, that's kind of where you guys got introduced, right? And he says you guys didn't instantly click. You kind of had to earn your respect a little bit.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. My wife and I had met about that same time, a little bit before that, and we weren't married yet, but we were living together, and now all of a sudden we got this young kid that's going to be the race car driver, and she thinks it's the end of my career,
right?
And I was like, hey, this kid's been doing all right. He's been racing those Star Mazda, well, it wasn't Star Mazda then, but the same cars.
Yeah.
And he'd been doing really good. And Mazda had been, looking after young drivers, sort of like what they do now, near 30 years later, which is amazing. And so the first race was okay. We didn't do great.
Right.
And he thought he had just rocked the world. And I remember Mark Hanswitz was one of the mechanics, and he said, "Everything all right?" And he's, "Yeah, And Tommy's thinking he just ran the best race of his life, and he was second. Sure. And Mark said, "Well, he didn't win, and it just totally destroyed Tommy."
Right.
But then, then he realized how serious we were. I mean, we didn't go to the races to finish second.
Yeah, to have a good day, you had to have a best day.
Right. So, I tell people, show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser.
I like that.
So anyways, let's see. Clayton's. So I worked on Jack Baldwin's car the first year that we won the championship there, and then Tommy won the championship in 80.
Yeah. So
it must have been 86, 87, and 88.
Right.
So 86 and 87 were in the Mazda. Then he left. I was thinking, we were just getting good enough, and he says, "I'm going to Chevy. I'll see you later." And they had a less than stellar run, and I remember after Sebring, he called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about moving to Michigan?" I was like, "Oh man, I'm living in Marina Del Rey.
Right.
I'm renting a room at the beach.
Right now, yeah. I mean, you're basically Marina Del Rey is sort of in the Venice,
LA
area,
awesome.
Santa Monica. Yeah, it's right by the ocean. Yeah,
it was unbelievable being a young kid.
Yeah, because where were you from?
I was from San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but my wife is from Brighton, Michigan, which is about 5 miles from.
And you were with her
in California
when Tommy gives you the call saying, "Hey, come to Michigan."
Right.
Okay.
So I fly back here, job interview, whatever, same deal. They never want to pay you.
Yeah.
Same deal. It's just like always, right? So they didn't want to pay me, and I just said, "Okay, here's the deal. If I come back here and we win the championship, you can pay me this money. But if we win the championship, it's this much."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Done," because they had already ruined 2 races.
Sure.
And I think we won the second race that I was there with them. So, and it wasn't all me. It was a matter about getting all these guys together. And it's never about one guy. This is not a one-guy sport. You guys know that. It's about how can you get the 5 or 6 or 10 guys all working together,
Yeah.
and getting the engineer to think about what's going on, listening to the driver, and making sure nothing falls off of it. And that's all we did.
Right.
And Tommy was good enough to drive anything.
Yeah.
He,
Oh, yeah.
it was unfair. So we came here. So it was 88, 89. 89 we sucked in Trans Am. And then 90 we won the championship again. And then off to the Intrepid. So that's sort of how it all worked.
Right.
And then I think it was 9 championships with Tommy from 86 to 97.
Right.
Might have been 8. I can't remember.
Well, and Tommy said when you first kind of got set up at Roush that there was a little bit of friction when you first started.
So
with Emery.
a typical Tommy thing, right? So he sets up these deals, and then let's bring Binks along, and
Right.
and I got totally screwed.
Right.
Okay, I got.
I just set this up. Every shop has their guy, right?
Right.
So this team, it's
Pecking
like, this
order.
is the guy that's running
But
the thing.
the
And you're
problem
new
there
kid.
was they hired their guy and me at the same time.
Oh, okay. So he
So-
hadn't been there.
He hadn't been there.
Oh, interesting.
And so I
Okay.
get there, and it's like, hey, you got a boss, and it's like, dude, I know this guy, and he's not a bad person. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's just
And who are we talking about?
Emery
Okay.
Donaldson.
Emery
Yeah,
Donaldson.
yeah.
And I don't, he's a nice guy. I still talk to him and all that, but we're different people.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Right.
we race different. We have different philosophies. I'm in the shop every day. I walk around the
Right.
car. I know what's going on.
And
I
this
know
is
what's
like
go-
89, 90?
This is after the Intrepid, so this is 92.
Yeah, okay.
The end of 92.
Okay.
I go to work for Jack.
Right.
We build 2 cars. He's the team manager, crew chief, and I'm, chief mechanic or whatever on one of the cars. He's got his buddy driving his other car. The second car is one of his buddies who's driving, Fergus.
Oh, yeah, John Fergus.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
great.
race against his son Corey now.
Great guy. They were partners, and Tommy and I were partners, so it was a little
Right.
awkward, right?
Right.
You're just trying to make
But
it.
the legend has it there was like a showdown to rebuild the
There really
transmission.
there was a showdown in the shop that he said that we should all use air tools, and
Which
I
was at
just
the
wasn't
time
that
fairly
guy,
new.
right?
Right.
I just wasn't that guy, and
so he's like every air tools, everything
just
we're
blow
taking
everything
apart.
off and put it
Right.
back on, and to me, you might as well have a rag in your pocket, and
Let's do it by hand.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's the same way my dad is.
yeah, it's just like, come on, let's do our job, and but he just wouldn't let it go. He wouldn't let it go, and I said, well, and I shouldn't have done it the way I did it,
Right.
and age helps that.
Because I assume your attitude was like, if we're getting the results, we're going to do it however we got to do it, right?
Yeah, I want to
Okay.
do it the best job I can, and
Right.
and if I just whip it back together, I'm not going to spend the time to
Really
have
make
it in my
sure.
hand
Yeah. Right.
and look
And
at
look
it.
at it with
and,
diligence,
I mean,
yeah.
if you just zip, and you're done, I just think you missed something.
Sure.
So he just would not let it go, and I said, we had a team meeting, and he was getting down on me, and I said, okay, right now there's 2 cars there. Let's take the transmissions apart and put them back together. Ready, go. Well, he couldn't have done that if he'd have tried.
Was there like
Just-
a tumbleweed that like flew across when you did it and you're sitting there ready? Staring at each other.
Yeah,
there's
that's
balloon
Dan Binks
that
doing
comes up.
sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
How
good.
about, was that all right?
We're good.
It's all right.
Yeah, perfect.
It was just a line in the sand on
Yeah.
that day, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't like it,
Right.
and Jack didn't care.
Sure.
I think Jack likes that.
Yeah.
when
Yeah, of
people,
course.
Yeah.
don't get along or whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it didn't take very long. Our car qualified first. I think they were 4th or 5th, maybe. The race starts, first yellow flag, they go a lap down because he didn't know what to do.
Strategy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, and
And he'd kind of come from that NASCAR logic where you pit under yellow.
Yeah,
and,
he just didn't think about what was going on,
Sure.
and he hadn't been racing in those races.
Sure.
And you don't have to be a rocket science. If you're in front of the leader, you stay out.
Yeah.
If you're behind the leader, you can take a chance.
Sure.
But,
Gotta get the lap back.
you got to get the lap back. So it took 3 laps for him to figure it out, and Jack's losing his mind. He is – I don't know if you've dealt with Jack, but in the old days, he would not have any problem letting you know that you were an
Where you
idiot
stood.
in front of
Okay.
everybody.
Right.
And that was just him. It wasn't a negative. He just, if
That's his way.
it was just his way.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy Jack, so I don't want it to come off wrong, but he just was losing his mind that we were so far apart on these two cars.
Right.
And I remember Jack saying, "I don't care what you do, you pit when Binks pits."
Right. Do the same thing he's doing.
Yeah. And so it went downhill. Obviously, you can imagine the tension between the two of us now, right? So one thing leads to another. That race finishes. We do win it with Tommy, and I think it was Mark Martin, and I can't even remember those years.
Was that the Paul Newman car?
No, it was before that. It was the flag car.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, it was Robbie Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack blew up at Robbie Gordon, too. That was awesome.
That seems to be a common theme.
Yeah, this is this year's theme.
Yeah. Robbie is a trip. We can have a whole different conversation on
We'd
Robbie.
love to. We actually we were talking about getting him, and then unfortunately his thing's going on with him, so we're not even going to bother him. But we'd love to have him at some point because that guy's
amazing.
seen it all.
He's
seen it, done it all.
So Jack called him to come drive out. We'll just side note on this.
Yeah.
Come to drive 24 hours of Daytona. And he didn't know that he was going to race with any other people.
Right.
He thought he was racing the whole thing by
24 hours
himself.
by himself. And he was probably fine with that.
And he's the only guy I know that could do it. I'm not kidding you. He could do it.
Yeah.
He's
he'd
just
been
that.
so used to Baja and just
Yeah. What do you
flat
mean
out.
I got
Right.
4 other drivers?
Yeah. What are they here for? Yeah.
Anyways, so we go to Miami for the sprint race. And Jack calls me. Actually, I had a pager. That tells you how long ago it was.
Right.
Jack pages me at like 3 in the morning. He said, "I'm on my way down. There's a problem with the valve springs. Pick me up at the airport. We'll change the valve springs, and I'll fly back to the NASCAR race."
Right.
Jack himself.
Jack himself in his
That's-
airplane. So I get the 2 engine guys, and we go to the track without Emery.
Okay.
Okay.
So
He didn't get the call.
he didn't get the call. I got the call.
Right. Yeah.
And so we got it ready. The valve covers are off. The rockers are off. Jack shows up. We're changing valve spring. Emery walks up.
Yeah.
And it was downhill from there.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and, it was a bummer for Emery, but, I don't know.
That's just been running
It's
around.
just
I mean,
the way
that's
it
just
is,
the reality
right?
of
I
racing.
mean,
Yeah.
Life
Yeah.
goes on. And I worked for Jack for 10 years and was able to help him win his first NASCAR championship with Greg Biffle.
Okay.
In 2000. So I never let Jack forget that Road Racers helped him win his
You're
first
damn right.
NASCAR
That's
championship.
awesome.
So,
Yeah.
There's got to be some classic Jack story out there that we don't know. Like, was there a mannerism he always had or an expression he used all the time?
He just is one of those guys that's – I think he's uncomfortable around people, different people.
Sure.
And he wasn't that uncomfortable around me, but I don't think he was, I mean, I'd fly with him in his airplane and, but he just – we weren't ever buddies,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
it's
I hear
a
you.
little weird
Yeah.
to,
He's still the boss.
he's still the boss and all
Yeah.
that. And I'd love to get that all-sport car at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Where is
but
it now?
Jack has it. It's
Okay.
in the museum.
Okay.
So, but the cool thing about Jack is no excuses, right?
Right.
If you worked for him and you worked hard and you did the best job you can, he really took that in.
Recognized it, Sure.
If you went to the Monday morning meeting and said, "Well, I didn't have this and I didn't do that, and we'd have been okay if we'd have done this," or he didn't want to hear that.
Sure.
He wanted you to take it for what it was, learn from it, and move on. And if you could do that, he didn't have any problem with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Excuses, he just lost it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, do you find yourself acting the same way as some of the guys you like? Who would you say you relate to the most from the way you manage the team?
I mean, at Brad Miller,
Yeah.
they probably say I'm a pain.
Yeah.
I expect a lot.
Sure.
I expect them to be there on time. That's probably my biggest pet peeve.
Being late?
I really struggle with people being late.
Sure.
I've yelled at them, and my motto is show up, work your butt off, and go home, right?
Yeah.
And when 3 guys are working on the car and one guy shows up at 20 minutes late, well, if he does that all month, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
Right?
right,
It's just
for
not fair, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Start time for everybody. So.
Sure.
But they get over it.
Yeah. I'm sure there's no shortness on people that want to work for Pratt Miller in the
Yeah.
GT program, so
It's
you better
been unbelievable.
keep
It
your
really
stuff
has.
together, yeah.
We've had the same group of guys. We get a couple new ones here and there.
Do you guys want some food, by the way? Do we want food?
Yeah.
It's up to you.
You seen me? So Ron and Tommy were like really at each other's necks in Trans Am. So when we raced against them, it took them a long time to figure out that I was okay. Even though I was.
Oh, when he was working with you later on.
When he worked with me later on. And actually, the second race we raced, the first race that we raced together was Sebring in 2003. And he wore a Tommy Kendall shirt under his fire shirt.
Okay.
And
Just
we
to
won.
Send a message.
Nice.
Okay.
So my first race at Corvette Racing, we won.
Right.
So, but Ron and I are super, we're tight. You know, he's cool. He's, in fact, his kid plays hockey in America. Well, he plays in Canada. And,
Right.
And he plays in Flint. We go up and watch him play and stuff. So we'll see Ron.
Now, we sat down with Johnny O 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Whenever it was. If there was one thing we learned about Johnny, according to him, is he was a second faster than everybody he's ever driven against.
Yes.
So
That's right.
did it
and
bother
he never
Johnny?
heard it telling everybody that too.
So that was true even then.
Yeah.
Okay. Did it bother Ron that clearly Johnny was faster?
Yeah. It didn't bother Ron. Ron didn't care.
Okay.
We all love Johnny, including Johnny.
Yeah. No
We
shortness
saw
to
that.
Yeah, we sat down with Johnny O, and he had some really interesting things to say about the Corvette program, because when he came in, he felt like he was up against fellows for, like, even as a teammate, it was his show for a while.
Right.
And then the thing that he said was that when the time came, Ron paid the favor the other way, like, okay, now it's your chance to go after the championship. And they created a great friendship out of that.
Yeah, they work together pretty well.
Yeah.
Race drivers are race drivers, right? They still want to be the best guy, right?
Sure. Right.
And in our program, with this Corvette deal running as long as it has, the drivers get older and they take on a different responsibility. Maybe they, they're still driving, but they talk to the other drivers and help them and all that, where, normally it would be just cutthroat. I'm not talking to you. And I think Ron probably set that example for everybody, even to this day.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's okay not to be the fastest guy. A lot of guys have a hard time taking that.
Yeah.
But once they get to that point, it's cool to help people.
You're right.
You know what I mean? It really is.
Kind of circling back a little bit, when you were with Baldwin at the Cunningham Mazda project, anything come out of that? Any funny stories?
Jack is a funny guy. I like Jack.
Yeah, we want him on.
Yeah, he is a riot.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I was friends with Jeff Klein, who was the co-driver with Jack.
Okay.
And Jack at that time was pretty much about Jack.
That time.
I'm being nice. I'm being nice. And Klein says, every time I get in this car, the mirrors are pointed at me.
That looked good.
So that's and we won a championship with Jack. He really could wheel that car, and he did a good job. And Clayton gave me a lot of great experiences, a lot of things, how to do things right, and he gave me some rope to hang myself a couple of times. But we won a lot of races. I think we won 7 races that year with Jack.
Sure.
So I was very fortunate. I was super young. So at that time I was 22. Can you imagine that nowadays?
Yeah,
That
22-year-old
could never happen.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't.
Not that level. No way.
Well, actually, that's something that's kind of a recurring theme we've had for that 22-year-old that's listening to this who wants to work for Pratt & Miller and work under you or something like that. What's the best way to get yourself out of that job?
Well, so, like my son, he volunteered, right? He changed tires when he was 16 at Petite on a P1 car.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Sweet.
So
Did they know that?
Yeah. So he would come to our shop and practice pit stops.
What car was it?
It was Mike Lewis's MG.
Okay.
Remember those
Yeah,
MGs?
yeah,
It was
yeah.
like
So
an orange
Intersport?
one. No, it was different. It was run by Autocon.
Oh, yeah.
They were out of California.
Yep.
They were nothing special, but I knew those guys from San Diego, and hey, my kid's going to come, and he went there not knowing that he was going to change tires.
Sure.
And they sort of like changed tires at the track, and he was like, wow, you could do this,
Right.
And away you go. So my deal is I would work on spec Miatas.
Yeah.
I would work on anything, Friday night races, whatever, and then volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I tell you to get a truck driver license, but I don't want anybody to do
Don't
that.
do that. Yeah.
But if you can work on a Friday night car or whatever, you can do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You can get the tires on, make sure they don't fall off. You can, add oil, make sure the engine's in right, all of those things. And that's why, I worked on Fiats and bug-eyed Sprites and Volkswagens and,
Right.
It's not all fun, right?
Of course.
But you're learning. You
Yeah.
know, my dad would let me work on anything, and it paid off.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the first time I saw you away from a pro race was at Sebring in 2008 or 9 or something.
Oh, yeah, I was driving.
You were driving the C5R that
Yeah.
somebody bought.
Blaine.
And that was the first time I'd seen that car, like in a privateer, or one of those cars.
It
And
was one of the very first privateer non-race cars.
Yeah.
Right? We sold them to racers.
Sure.
But Bob Blaine was the first guy that we sold it to as a vintage car.
Yeah, and I was there racing like a Cayman or something, and we were in one of the same groups first, because those
Okay.
HSR race weekends can be like
Chaos.
You can be in a 2-liter 911 and an R8 Audi
Yeah, that's right.
LMP1 car
Yeah.
to be out there, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I came down pit lane, like go talk to my guy who was coaching, and you're like getting out of the car in a driver's suit and helmet, and I had no idea you drove anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, how cool is that? The guy that builds those cars gets to drive them now.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So actually, another friend of mine was going to buy that car first.
Okay.
And he said, "No, I can't do it right now, but I know this guy that will." And so he calls. So he calls him, then he calls me and says, "Don't sell it to anybody. I'll be there Friday.
Yeah.
If I can fit,
It's mine.
it's mine."
Yeah.
So he's a big guy.
Okay.
He's 6'2" or 6'3". So, and he's he's not fat, but he's a big guy. I don't know, 220 pounds maybe. I don't know. But anyways, we take the seat out, the whole thing's out, and he gets in there and says, "If you guys could build me a seat that fits this thing, I'll drive it."
Okay.
And the guy that was going to buy it is Al Petkus, and I drive some of his cars. He's got a couple of Riley and Scott Mark IIIs.
Yeah.
He's got Dorsey's Ray Bestis car that I
Trans
drive
Am
once
car.
in a while.
Yeah.
And so he said, "You need to have Binks come drive that thing with you and make sure that you're up to speed with getting, all of this stuff, right?" And so, he got the traction control updates. He got,
For
All the good
HSR.
stuff.
Yeah.
for HSR,
Yeah.
right? And he let me drive it. And in fact, he was bugging me last night at Road America to come drive at Daytona with him. But
Classic 24.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and then there's another one at Sebring, but I don't feel that good anymore driving those cars.
Sure.
So I had some health problems a while ago, and they're fixed and all that. But whatever happened messes with the way I feel driving those cars. And that thing, it's not planned.
Yeah.
Right.
So first of all, they don't have restrictors.
Right.
I do the engines for those cars at my home.
Okay.
So like George Kratz and Blaine, Charlie Nurburg, he's got a car at the a couple cars in the Peterson Museum. So those guys send their stuff to me to get updated.
That's cool.
So they make probably 150 more than they made in the day.
I was leading you a little bit on the Jack Baldwin question, because there's a rumor about some sort of Cadillac getting wrecked.
Yikes. So there was a couple of different ones. So Jack asked me to return his Cadillac to the airport. And I did that, but it was a little worse for wear.
Sure. It was a rental car.
It was a rental car. I was very young. We won the race. Probably had a few too many cocktails.
Maybe.
But this is in the 80s. It was sort of acceptable.
Can't be prosecuted for it
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
No.
Exactly.
And
Different culture.
so we're in Lime Rock, and so I don't know if you know where the jump is at Lime Rock. There's a jump on the one of the roads there.
Okay.
And so just for the record, Tommy jumped a Cadillac there, and the interior light came on and wouldn't go off. That's how bent it was. Okay. So anyways, I got Jack's car. I'm 21 years old, driving a Cadillac. I'm as cool as you can be in Lime Rock.
Sure. Yeah. Living the life.
We're going down this country road a million. And all of a sudden it turns left. And I'm on this guy's yard going 60.
Right.
Right.
And it's all I can do to miss the pine tree in the front of the guy's house. and all of a sudden it just gets quiet.
Because you're in the air.
Yeah. And we land. So one yard was above the other yard, and we land on this guy's wood pile.
In Lime
Awesome.
Rock,
Right,
which
yeah.
is like quiet town
Yeah.
USA.
Exactly.
The guy comes out and he goes, "Boy, there's turns out here." So, as nice Connecticut people are, he gets his floor jack out. We jack it up, get it down. We had to fix it,
Yeah.
but it was never right. We had to take the steering wheel off and put it back on
Just
so it was
straighten it.
clocked right.
And the Enterprise phone call?
Yeah, they didn't call.
No
They
kidding.
never called.
Okay.
It's amazing what you can get away with.
Yeah.
In those days, it was a lot more.
Right.
You know, now, Tommy and there's another story about Tommy. We raced at Del Mar,
Okay.
and Willie T. Ribbs, Jack Baldwin, Tommy. There was a handful of them.
Yeah, that's already a trouble brewing
Yeah.
story right there.
They went on the horse track
With the
rent-a-car.
car.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
talk about trouble. And
He left that out.
yeah, he should have left that out.
Yeah, he
His
did.
dad was like on the Del Mar, board of directors.
Oh,
or something.
nice.
Tommy's
Oh, right.
whipping
There's
around
his
the horse
idiot
track.
son driving around. Yeah.
Idiot son.
So there was a better one with Jack. I don't know if we should tell it.
Yep.
Get into
That's
it.
a yes.
We'll see
We
it.
can always edit it.
So we're in,
we're going to ask him, too, when he's on one day.
We're in Portland, Oregon. And Jack is just Jack. I mean, everybody just gets enough of Jack. He's just like, enough, Jack. So I said, man, I'm going to get him. So I automatic center punch the headlights on his car. And I fill them with oxyacetylene and put Scotch tape over them. And then we wait to see what he does, right? And he goes out to get his car, and he turns on the headlights, and the hood and the fenders come off. I mean, literally an explosion, right? And those are the days where everybody did acetylene bombs. They would blow them up all the time. It was no big deal, right? So next thing we know, the fire trucks are coming to the Red Lion there, and dude, it got really serious in a big hurry.
Yeah.
And one of our sponsors, I won't tell you his name, but he got everybody together and he said, "All right, that was the practical joke of a lifetime.
Yeah.
No more."
That's it.
Yeah, that was
Shut it down.
Yeah, it was too much.
Now, if something like that happened today with one
Yeah,
of
that
your
would
guys.
be bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'd imagine it's
That
not
would be
taken the
bad.
same way.
But I'm more lenient now.
Right. But you also have a very brand-conscious company. That
You just
have to be aware of.
can't
Right.
do those things
Right.
anymore,
Yeah.
right? I mean, with
Yeah.
your accurate deal, and people are looking out for you to be the role model or the right person, and I'm just trying to make up for it now.
With being like the big daddy of Pratt Miller, I got to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's how you snuck
he's
that
like,
in.
don't like that. When your guys screw around, you have a little bit of tolerance for it because you know what it's like to be the younger guy in a big program.
Absolutely.
And everything. Yeah.
Right. And without the screwing around, you don't get the camaraderie
Yeah,
or
for
whatever.
sure.
You need all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a team sport, and once in a while I have to be the iron fist guy.
Someone's got to be.
Right.
But every
exactly.
team
When-
needs that.
Yeah.
You need the instigator. You need the guy that's getting picked on that a little bit too much.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah, right.
yeah.
When he starts crying, you have to go.
All right, guys.
Fine. Okay. Get off him.
Yeah. Did you learn anything?
Yeah.
Get back on him.
Well, I'm a big believer that giving each other is a good way of correcting somebody's behavior without having to lecture them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of hazing's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of set the pecking order.
Yeah.
When you
We might
worked,
take it to a different level.
right. Yeah. When you worked with Roush, there was another TK story. We're just throwing him under the bus.
Yeah, he's getting me.
Yeah. There was something about an expense receipt with you and Jack where it was some dumb.
It was like a movie ticket or something. They were hounding you and hounding
about
you
like
about
a $4
it.
charge, and apparently,
Yeah.
That happened a lot.
yeah.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
I mean, it was just.
Well, that was just the
Where was he
accounting way.
going with it? I don't know
Okay.
where Tommy was going.
Oh,
with
apparently the one-liner was, "What are you going to do? Fire me?"
it. Yeah, that's right. Well, I did that a lot, and
Well, it's true.
my
I get
motto
that.
is if they could find somebody better and cheaper, they'd already done it.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
So,
you go.
I
like that answer.
But for me, right, I was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on transmissions and brakes and all that,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're worried about some $4 charge. It's like, give me a freaking break,
Yeah,
people.
right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Jack, right? It wasn't Jack. It was just, that's how the bean counters worked, right? It was just a pain.
Right.
It's like, no, I don't have a receipt for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to let it go.
Yeah. I could throw away a $60,000 transmission and nobody would know.
IMSA, kind of when you were getting in the thick of it with the GTB project, there was a lot of people going to jail for different things. Were you ever caught up in not necessarily working for those people, but seeing it and being like, what is going on here?
So I worked with John Paul Jr.
Yeah.
at Phil's. And so I'm a young kid. John
Right.
Paul was a young kid.
Yeah.
I remember one night we were hauling ass down the freeway. Hauling ass.
Yeah.
And got pulled over. And Junior, I don't know how much money he had. Enough.
Yeah.
And the guy asked us a couple questions, and he said, will this do?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
He walked away.
No problem. Have a good night.
Because in my head, that could really go bad the other way.
Yeah.
You get
But
the
in
wrong
those
cop.
days, I mean, the guy was probably making $15,000, right? In the
Right.
early 80s.
Right,
You
right.
know,
Right. The cop.
the cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in a $100,000 car.
Yeah. It's like 15 grand today.
Is there a nostalgia a little bit for that kind of day where, not necessarily where you could pay off cops, but what I was saying, where you could get away with
You could get away
blowing
with
up a rental
lot.
car and
Yeah,
there's no DNR list.
Yeah.
And computers
Exactly.
that
I mean,
keep
I
them
remember we beached a car at Daytona one time, and they, not that we didn't get in trouble, but we didn't go to jail.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So, it was just a different time in the world.
Yeah.
It really was.
Right.
And it wasn't that, that we were trying to buy off a policeman. It was just like, hey, sorry, we were really stupid. Will
Yeah.
this help?
Yeah.
You know?
Right, right.
Let's make us less
Just
stupid.
accepting your
Yeah.
penalty.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we've done 2 dumb things in the last 5 minutes.
Would you go back to NASCAR?
If I was 20, I'd drive straight there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Think about this, right? I mean, when I was 20, it was the early 80s. It would have been unbelievable for me. There was plenty of guys like me
Yeah.
there,
Right.
that would work on those cars and make them faster.
Right. Right.
And I wouldn't have to work right now.
Right.
Don't take
Yeah.
that wrong,
Yeah,
right?
no,
It's not
understood.
that I,
Completely understood. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I love what I do.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the season ended about 3 weeks ago in
Yep.
IMSA.
Congrats on the championship.
Congrats on the championship.
Awesome deal.
thank you. The 4-car and both cars did good.
Yeah.
The 4-car was able to win the championship, which was awesome.
Right.
And the 3-car ended up third. With
Right.
a couple wrecks there early in the year. It was a bad deal, but
Sure. Well, but my point is, presumably you guys are, without knowing your test schedule, presumably you're already back at it for next year. I'm sure
yeah,
you've
we
got tests lined up.
Load up Friday. So.
Yeah, exactly. But yet, last weekend you're running chump car.
Yeah.
You're talking about restoring old cars. Is it correct that you restore vintage or Volkswagens or something like that? Is that what we heard?
So I had a Volkswagen. I had a
Right.
51 VW. That's the guy that bought it said it was the nicest one he'd ever seen.
Yeah,
so
right.
whatever, it was a very nice car.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd been all over. Carmen had called.
Just happened. Anyway.
Oh,
Anyway.
trivia started.
Yeah, I
Right.
guess it started.
Yeah,
We missed
yeah.
it. Go on.
This is normally the night with my daughter and my wife. We hang out and try to not be last.
Right. So we ruined family night.
Yeah. That's all right.
But that's my point. Is it like, this is like your one escape. It doesn't seem like you have a lot of weekends where you're just going fishing.
No,
Yeah.
I don't fish. I actually like catching fish, but I don't like fishing. Do you understand?
Yeah.
If we're gonna go fishing, I want to catch a sailfish.
Okay.
I don't want to
There's a
go
mission.
and get crappie.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to sit on a bucket and go ice fishing. You
Right.
know, I want to
Yeah.
catch fish. Right?
Right.
I can do that.
You've got a goal.
I don't
You want to
relax
achieve it.
well,
Yeah.
and it drives my wife insane.
Right.
I can get up on the weekend and get 4 or 5 hours in the shop, and
Right.
they're getting breakfast, at
Right.
10.
Right.
So it's just
What's the
how
normal
it is.
wake up time for you?
4:30. So
Ugh.
I don't think the road trip with us is going to work for you.
Yeah. Oh, he probably doesn't know that we have a cardboard Bill Riley with us.
Yeah.
really,
Yeah, Bill's on the trip with us, basically.
sweet.
Yeah,
I saw it on something.
There
It
we
was a
go.
Facebook thing.
We're
I
getting
did,
there.
I did see it.
We're getting there. Yeah, that kind of just stemmed from we had such a nice time with him last year. Like, Bill, you're coming on the trip next year. And he's like,
That's awesome.
yeah, I'm in.
I'll send you.
He didn't realize.
Didn't realize what that meant. Obviously, you've been in the paddock for a long time. You work with Johnny O.
Yep.
How is it that the sport has managed to keep it secret that he attempted to murder Dario Franchitti?
Dario is such a practical joker.
Oh,
So I don't know if you know or not, I wrote a book. I helped write a book.
I did not know
Did not know. Wait, what?
It's
Where can we
called
find
Making It Faster.
Okay.
A friend of mine, Norm, and I.
Is it on like Amazon?
Yeah,
or?
it's on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
Oh, okay.
So, anyways,
third book.
Yeah.
that the money goes to my camp, and anyways,
Oh,
we
oh,
wrote
done.
we wrote
All
a
right.
book.
Okay.
We're doing that.
So Dario, figures out the craziest places to put it, like
The book.
the book.
Yeah.
Like he had it under his bicycle, like he had the rear tire spinner thing in his house, and he put it under the front tire to make it level. He blocked the door open to his garage with
Nice.
it.
Okay.
Just random
How do you know each other?
through Tommy.
Oh, okay.
So
Makes sense.
yeah. So I know a lot of those guys. I know, like Mike Hull. I mean, I've known Mike Hull since he
We're
raced
gonna-
Formula Fords.
Cool.
Okay. We're gonna see him on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Can
He's
you?
gonna be on.
We don't really know him.
Okay.
So, kind of like how we came in prepared for you with a couple of questions.
Are you going to talk to him?
Yeah, Wednesday.
We're really excited
driving
about
down
it.
to Everett.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He seems cool based on our emails,
Yeah.
but we don't know him at all. So, like,
It'll be good. Yeah.
so what's the best thing we can prompt him on that he doesn't know we know?
I don't know. I'd ask him about his driving career.
Okay.
Oh, that's
It
yeah.
w- it
You got
was-
that grimace, like, yeah, it wasn't good.
It was. He had fun. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
There's guys that get. I'm not saying that he couldn't drive, but he drove and he did it a lot. And not a lot, but
So now your son, was it always clear this was kind of the path he was on,
yeah.
and you were always okay with this? It wasn't like, I don't know, you're never gonna have any free weekends.
You're not working for me.
What I told him was, he didn't want to work for me.
Yeah.
He'll always be my kid there,
Yeah.
and it'll never
Yeah.
never work
100%
out.
agree.
Right.
And that was his choice.
Well, it was our choice.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to put him in that position.
Right,
He's
right.
always going to be my kid. It's always going to be a hassle.
Yeah, and people are always never going to treat him exactly like they would somebody else.
That's right.
Whatever would direct
And
him. Fair.
he worked with Alex Job and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
he did just fine. He did exactly what he needed to, and now he's at Ganassi. And
on the Ford program.
Yep.
Right.
It was pretty cool. One of the guys when Phil started there at Ganassi said, I don't know if he said don't talk to Mike, but he said something like that, And the next day, Mike walked up and said, hey, when I used to race, your grandpa came over and said, if I need anything, let me know.
Right.
And he was like, I mean, that's what kind of small world
Yeah.
that
Right.
we deal with,
Right.
right? Your dad,
Yeah.
knows everybody. I know,
Yeah.
of that time frame,
Yeah.
everybody knows everybody. So, and that's what I told him. It's a small world, so be smart.
Now, you don't strike me as a guy that spends a lot of time on websites and forums and
No.
Facebook. And
No.
The like the racer.com forums where people comment after an article. It's one of our favorite pastimes.
Yeah.
Because it's
God awful.
yeah, it's just a kind of a cross section of what the world actually thinks. But we believe we've fixed it because during the show last year, all we did was talk about how awful it was and make fun of it. And we were checking some of the forums for some of the guys we were meeting with this week, and we noticed how pleasant they all were.
It was better.
All
Yeah,
the
it was
arguments
better.
were logical and
Yeah.
like good
Succinct.
thought processes involved, not screaming and yelling.
Complimentary of the people they
Yeah,
were talking
like,
about.
I enjoy your opinion.
I like
Here's
Mike
mine.
Shea.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, what?
I think it's fun to talk to people like that because we, Corvette fans and all that,
Yeah.
and what their perception is of what's going on
Right.
isn't really reality.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, without making a big Corvette commercial, you guys have one of the most brand loyal fan bases out there. But do you get that guy who sees what you're working on? Is like, on my 78, I found that if I just adjusted
Non-stop.
something. Really?
Hey, do you know where I can get side pipes for my 68? It's like
Right.
Do they give you advice?
some. There is a few that are just priceless.
Yeah.
I can't think of one at the moment, but some of them are just like, wow. I'd put a Carter on that thing and you guys would go ripping around here or something. I mean, they just
Which is no concept of it, right?
where we're at. Yeah.
Right.
But they're awesome. They are awesome.
Yeah.
They are dedicated. We get them. I mean, they fly to France. They bring
Yeah.
their cars to France.
Right.
I mean, it's just. I call some of them super fans.
Yeah, they are.
And they are just off the top.
I mean, if you look at the Corvette owners from prior to that program beginning, they were out there and they're proud of the cars, but now they have like a reason to go to events.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they go to the museum where you guys do testing at now, and you bring the car there, and people show up for that. It's like a really loyal brand. But to me, it's cool because I didn't grow up wanting to be in NASCAR or IndyCar. I wanted to be in sports car racing from the get-go because of my old man.
Your dad, yep.
But to see a brand be that loyal because of that one program that races in one niche thing, you guys don't do hill climbs or try to race another series with it. You literally do the one thing, and it's become a good program for the car sales.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people trade in and get the next one.
And I was told
exactly.
like go ahead.
They all want to talk about the next one and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have the right one now.
Yeah,
so we're good. But yeah, and it's amazing. They'll have a Ron Fellows edition, and they sell it in one day.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. Right.
It's just mind-boggling that there's that many people, first of all, that know about road racing,
Right.
know about Ron Fellows, and have enough money to buy a car in one day.
Right. Yeah.
So when are they going to come out with like the Dan Binks like tuning special?
They won't want that.
All right. So cutting out sort of the last, let's say, 10 years of Corvettes, because that's got an inherent bias. If there was one car, like you mentioned, the all-sport car, if there was one car you could have in your garage today that you worked on, what would that be?
Yeah, that for sure would be the all-sport car.
Okay.
I've contemplated talking to Jack, and I don't have the kind of money that you need to buy a car like that. One of Tommy's Berettas just sold for $500,000.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
and by the way, if the guy needs an engine, I have one.
All right. You're listening to Dinner with Racers. You just bought a $500,000 Beretta. You know you are.
Yeah. And anyways, the all-sport car was sort of the tipping point of both Tommy's and my career, right? I mean, we had great runs before that, and I've been fortunate enough after that. But that was like the one that was like, wow.
Yeah.
Doug Louth came on board there. He was our engineer on that car, and he was, super young, super smart.
Right.
And we were able to work together. And, Jack gave us good power. We had great cars. Rich Reichenbach was the engineer, or the fabricator that made the cars, and Doug was the engineer.
Right.
And we were just fortunate enough to get a really fast race car. And Tommy was at, his peak, and it was just, phenomenal.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, if Tommy was shorter, where he could have gone to,
Just being able to fit in more race cars, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, he
Right,
would've-
right.
There was a funny story of him and Paul Tracy, and if I was 5'10", they would have never heard of Paul Tracy.
All right, let's talk some trash on the new guys. When Jordan Taylor shows up with all of his Jordan Taylor antics, does everybody roll their eyes, or are
He's
you guys
awesome.
good with it?
He's unbelievable.
Shut you down.
Yeah.
Shut you down, Sean.
Don't you dare.
You don't talk about JT.
He, well, first of all, you watch him on social media. I mean, he's just nonstop.
Yeah.
The funny guy, but when he shows up, he's kind of not the funny guy.
Yeah.
And then, you just don't know which one you're going to see that day. And there'll be some point where there's a funny thing that happens that he set up
Yeah.
that you didn't see coming.
Yeah.
And he's a riot.
Yeah.
I tell him his mom did a great job.
Right.
I like Wayne, but Wayne's Wayne. And, I
Another theme.
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Now, if you
One thing that was cool a couple of weeks ago, I got Wayne. They remade the Intrepid shirts at Pratt & Miller.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's cool.
And I got one for the three of them.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
That is cool. I want one of those.
Yeah, no kidding.
Have you spent much time with Ricky, on the other hand?
I have.
Yeah.
We messed around with them testing, and then we went to we did that WEC race last year. It wasn't very good. We weren't really ready and didn't do the right job, but we didn't know the rules good enough and had a couple problems. But it's been fun to work with him. He drove this year. He drove at Le Mans with us, and that was pretty good. He I don't know. You've never driven there, I don't think.
No,
have
I'm
you?
not. Nope.
It is unbelievably difficult.
Yeah.
It's one of those places where you have to drive it loose, and it never gets better.
Yeah.
And some people can do it, and some people can do it. Some people wreck, and some people just back off a little bit and make it happen. And he just needs more laps there.
Yeah.
And, you're still a young guy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
both of them are.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, for some reason, Jordan has felt that car
Yeah.
a little more comfortable than
Sure.
than Jordan, but he's running a lot of laps. He's been in the simulator,
Yeah.
So
With
go ahead.
Jordan coming into the team, I think it was last year at the test day, he showed up, got in the car, and wrecked.
and wrecked, yeah.
And then
It was awesome. Well, it wasn't awesome, but here's a guy that comes in, he just smashes it big time.
yeah,
right?
and he just won Detroit.
He just won
in
Detroit,
DP.
yeah,
Yeah.
and literally he went from the highest high to the
Yeah.
lowest low, right?
Yeah.
And I said, dude, that'll happen here, even when you're rested.
Yeah.
Okay, we set him up to fail on that deal. You
Okay.
can't fly here, get on a helicopter,
Right.
and expect
Right.
to go 10 laps and
Having never been there before.
never been
Yeah.
there. It's not playing.
Yeah.
And, he wrecked it. We got the car fixed. No big deal. I told him, don't worry about it. I said, those parts are free.
Right.
We just
Yeah.
get more.
Yeah, it's all good.
We have plenty of stuff. We have spare cars now.
Yeah.
Well, at that time we didn't, but you just get that out of your mind. And it took them till probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 stints to get
Right.
going again.
Yeah.
And you're just like, sometimes you want to say, hey, drive like you should, man.
Yeah, it's
you know what I
cool.
mean?
Right.
But
Don't
you
worry
just
about
got to get through it.
Right.
And he'll remember that the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Hey, and he got another chance, right? Which
Yeah,
is,
that's where I was going with this, and then he gets to come back,
yeah. And now he's won.
and he's won Le Mans.
Yeah. And for anybody to win that race, I tell people, my whole race career, all the championships and all the races and all that, when you walk up there on that podium and they sing the national anthem, that's the only one you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not discounting all the
Sure.
Daytonas and all that, but for me, if that was my last day, that was
good.
it.
You're good.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, all right. So who's the? You got a very buttoned-up group right now with the driver lineup for your full season. Who's the closet case prankster that we don't know about? Like, is Garcia sitting there putting like dead fish in your underwear?
No.
Make me happy and say he is.
Garcia is just a machine.
Okay.
He doesn't.
He's a robot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
basically
doesn't.
plug him in.
Is he
Yeah.
human?
Yeah.
Is he a human being?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's so nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit that he's a race car driver.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
You have to be a little bit,
Selfish.
yeah.
Yeah.
And don't care what people think about you. And,
Right.
And he is just like a regular, calm. He'll get mad in the car. Don't get me wrong. He'll
Yeah.
say something on the radio or something. But normally he's just like right to the point. Doesn't mess around with anybody. Yan doesn't mess around much. Sometimes Tommy will
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Oliver's loosened up some lately.
He does seem a lot more laid back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was upset over that deal where those people got in his house and stole his medals and all that. I don't know if you heard
No.
about that. Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
So his family was home and they like broke into one part of his house and stole his helmet and all his Le Mans medals. So that was a bummer. He was upset about that,
Yeah.
obviously, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But
That's scary.
yep. Having people in your house when your
Yeah, right.
family's
That's the
there.
bigger thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You replace medals. Who's
Don't
the-
come to my house. I know where the guns are.
Yeah, exactly. See, if he was living over here.
That's right. Yeah, those guys don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of that, they don't get guns at all. Antonio is like offended that my daughter shoots.
Right.
My daughter shoots handgun and rifles and
Right.
and you teach your 16-year-old daughter how to shoot? And it's like, yep.
Yeah, sure. So you've obviously, it's no secret that Corvette tests a lot of drivers throughout the years. I know a couple of my friends that have gotten to do it, as well as like the Cadillac program. Like you guys are always evaluating talent to get. I've been told the actual phrase was we wanted to get data on those drivers in case you needed somebody down the road you know who you can pull and pick from. Who's the guy that tested that you thought, man, they might get it and they might not, that we would be surprised to hear tested for you? Not recently, if that's going to affect anybody, but like who's somebody like 10 years ago or 5 years ago? It's like, oh yeah, we tested Jeff Gordon and we thought, man, he wants it, he's got it, or anything like that.
I mean, Jimmy drove it one time,
Sure.
and
Yeah, Johnny actually told us about that.
yeah, he flew off the track and spun out a
He
couple
didn't
times.
tell us that.
Yeah, I think he didn't those tires are pretty tough.
Right.
Now, you weren't there on day one of the Corvette program, and obviously today you're kind of seen as like one of the staple guys of that program. How was that transition going in?
It was interesting. Bill DeLong was the sort of chief mechanic, crew chief guy, and he wanted to not travel, had some young kids, and I had worked with Bill before on the Intrepid and stuff, so it was actually kind of weird. I called Gary, and he said, it's really weird that you called because Bill just talked to me about not going to the races anymore, and I met with Gary. I called him on, I don't know, Thursday or Friday one week, met with him at lunch, and he hired me. And like I said, I'd already worked there before, so they knew sort of what they were getting. I was tired of the NASCAR stuff. I wasn't tired of the NASCAR stuff. My son called me on the telephone one time and said, Dad, will you come over and play? And I said,
Where were you guys living?
We were living here, so we'd fly down there. But we worked here. Jack's Craftsman Truck Shop was in Livonia.
Okay.
Yep.
So some just sort of bigger picture philosophical questions. You know, we talked with Brad Kettler a couple days ago at Audi. Obviously, they run a customer-driven program, so they kind of have a different master that they answer to in terms of how they budget, how they sell their cars, that sort of thing. But somebody like you who's running a factory program, Pratt & Miller has a history of not selling their cars to too many people. When you hear about things like weekly BOP calls and stuff like that, like how has the sport changed to you, and is it changing for the better?
So on the BOP side?
Yeah, or BOP, or just where do you see like the current direction of where the sport's headed?
So I think the current direction right this second with GTLM cars is probably the best it's been.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, I think not only that we won, but the Ferrari won the last race. You know, everybody won some. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I'm saying that it's pretty darn close. They've been really paying attention to what's going on, and nobody's been able to run away with it.
Right.
So I think that part is better. I wish there was more cars. You know, I wish some of the, Lexuses and those things would come GTLM racing instead of running, GTD. Yeah. But for me, we got great drivers in the class and great cars, great pit crews, and if you don't do the right job, you don't win.
Right.
So that's why we do it, right? We, like I said,
you miss being able to dominate?
No. We do this because it's competition, right? We do it. I hate losing, okay? And my wife really doesn't like losing because when I come home, I'm not ready to deal with it. You know what I mean? Oh, God. She knows exactly what damn Ferrari ruined my weekend. Yeah, exactly. And that's still the same as it was 20 years ago, right? And that's why we do this. Right. We go to work, we work really hard, and we try to win races. And when you don't, you either did something wrong or, there's not many times, even when you do win, I mean, you should have been able to do a few things better, right? So that's the coolest part for us is go home, what did we do good, what did we do bad, what do we need to work on, and if you get better every time, you'll win a lot of races.
So we sat down with Mark Miller last night, who races for CJ Wilson Racing and Bill Riley in the GTD class for the long races like Le Mans, Daytona, etc. And he's from, he lives in Holland, Michigan, so he's 2 hours away, not too far away.
Yeah, it's beautiful over there.
Yeah, it was really nice. And his question was, if you could choose, we do a pass-along question, so you'll have one for Kenny Wallace tomorrow.
Sweet.
And his question for you was, if you could choose any other race program to do what you do in current motorsports in any series, what would it be and why? And you can't say anything Chevy, GM, unless it's NASCAR. And I added the NASCAR part.
So like I said, if I was 20, I'd go straight to NASCAR.
Right, but you're not. This is Dan Binks tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Open booking. Go anywhere you want.
I don't know, man. I think I'm staying here.
You're good. You got what you want.
No way.
I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah.
I get to wake up every morning
at 4:30
and work on cool race cars with some of the best people on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay? If somebody can dream it up, somebody at Pratt & Miller can do it.
Yeah.
Right? If they can dream it, somebody can make it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're so lucky.
Yeah.
I believe in God or whatever, and I believe things happen for a reason. Sure. And I left Pratt & Miller, and I believe I was supposed to come back to Pratt & Miller.
Yeah.
And I really feel that. It's not that I didn't like Jack. Like I said, I spent 10 years there, but it was time to go. And when I called Gary and he said, we got a spot for you, that was a really lucky day.
Yeah.
And that was really good for Dan Binks, and it was really good for my family. And, like I said, my son's been able to get a job now in motorsports. Yeah. He loves it. My daughter wants to be a race car engineer. I don't know why. But she's smart enough to do it, and you just never know. And how blessed would I be to have my son and my daughter. And my wife grew up racing. Her dad raced, and her brother's a national champion. So, and actually we're going racing again with her brother. We're working on a Formula V for the runoffs.
Cool. Nice.
So we're all about racing. That's why we do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, a weekend off, we go racing.
Right.
So is there such a thing as a no racing anything day? What does Dan Binks do when there's no chump car, there's no restoring?
You don't have to fix anything at the farm.
I go camping and go shooting.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
Okay.
So I shoot when we can.
What's shooting?
We shoot trap, rifles. In fact, I just got a new rifle. I got an 1885 Winchester high wall.
Sweet.
So super old stuff,
That's
like
cool.
a sniper rifle from the Confederate time.
Yeah.
But I just like going out and having a good time, walking through the woods, and I don't hunt.
Right.
I tell people I can buy my own hamburger.
Yeah.
But I like shooting, and I like
exactly.
archery and.
Same as me.
What's the song in your head when you're hunting? Foo Fighters?
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Probably some Neil Young or something crazy like that, right?
Something crazy like Neil Young.
Keep on rocking. So tomorrow we're going to sit down for lunch in Arnold, Missouri with Kenny Wallace.
All right.
Anything you could think to ask Kenny Wallace. It can be racing related or otherwise.
What would he be doing if he wasn't racing? What kind of job would he have, or, where would he have seen his life going?
I think that's probably the first time in a long time that somebody was like, here's a question and answer.
Yeah, like that they weren't prepped. Yeah,
I don't know.
It's got to be good.
I'm usually not like that.
Well, what's interesting is how serious people take it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big deal when they're also like, I don't know
Joey,
what to ask.
We had Joey Hand, and his question was for Janet Guthrie, the IndyCar female.
I know
in
she is,
NASCAR.
yeah.
And he was like, just could not come up with it. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. I'd just be interested to see where, because him and his brother and all the stuff, how all that worked out. What would happen if the racing thing didn't work out?
Right.
What would they have done?
That's a fair
You know what
question.
I would have done? You'll never guess in a million years. Done.
Corporate attorney.
No.
Corporate attorney. John Paul's attorney.
I wanted to build prosthetics.
Huh.
Okay.
Like a family history or anything?
No,
That's weird.
but just like, I grew up in San Diego. There's military guys, right?
Yeah.
And you'd see them, and they'd be messed up or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can make those.
Right.
I could make those parts and pieces and all
Sure.
that. And it never. Well, racing was huge. That's what I wanted to do. But if that wouldn't have worked out, I think I could have made a business out of making, carbon, titanium.
A lot of money in that.
Well,
business.
I know.
If there's one thing we know, it's that Gary Pratt is a huge fan of our podcast. Like, I'm sure he's listened to all of them.
He's like, who is
And,
this?
Yeah, he doesn't even know a podcast. Who's this guy podcast?
Maybe you could run the prosthetics division. When,
Yeah, you
when
never
give up
know, right?
racing,
Right.
You know.
The Pratt Miller
Yeah.
prosthetics.
You never know, man.
You get Liam Dwyer in
there.
there, get him up
Dwyer.
on the bench.
Well, good to know. You should buddy up with John Bennett.
John Bennett.
Yeah,
there
you
you
should
go.
buddy up with John Bennett. He's not
you,
far.
Liam Dwyer, John Bennett.
Yeah,
Bennett
they start your own company.
You never know.
Yep.
Making prosthetics.
And then that company can sponsor a podcast.
Right.
You know.
We'll help you sell more prosthetics.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
I don't think there'll be anything after racing, so.
Yeah, good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, you've had a hell of a career, so it shouldn't
Now,
be-
are you saying that in the sense that, like, this is it and you're going to do this until the day you die, or that when you're done,
I
then
will
you're just gonna do
probably
nothing?
work on cars till the end of time.
Yeah.
Till I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I have a bitchin' shop at my house,
Yeah.
Right.
and I can work on one car at a time.
Right.
In fact, Tommy called me tonight and said we got to get a car ready. So I said, "Do you have a budget?"
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Some money there for us.
yeah.
How do I know you're good for it?
Well, I have all his other cars, so I could just start selling them.
Right. Like, all right.
I told him I'm not taking the chicken car though.
Well, that thing's worth a lot of.
That thing is
at least $500.
And I will say, I actually had the pleasure of driving that car a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the thing that caught me off guard is you expect that it's going to get some attention. What I didn't expect was how many women come out of nowhere to want to get a ride in the thing.
To see your
Really didn't
cock?
expect that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
There's a Timmy Petty. He's Maurice's son, I think.
Right.
He's a friend of mine from NASCAR land. And Tommy brought that thing to Montana.
Yep.
And he had his redneck teeth in and his Confederate
right.
hat.
Yeah.
And he was in the drive-through at In-N-Out. And we're sitting on the park benches, and he said, "Hey, Kendall, nice cock." Only Tommy can get away with that car.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's like him to a T.
That's his thing, exactly.
Do you know who Decal is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Kelly. I'm
He
the only guy that knows Paul
his
Kelly.
name. He knows his
Boom.
name.
Yeah. Paul Kelly.
Yeah.
So, funny story, Paul Kelly. Do you know Max Jones?
Yes.
He works at Ganassi.
We're going to see him
Yeah, he's coming on too.
next week.
Is he really?
Yeah.
So I worked with Max forever.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Paul Kelly saved Max Jones's life.
Holy
Oh,
Yes,
That's
tell me
what we
that's
need.
real.
You need to say
Okay.
that. Who in the paddock saved your life?
Oh, wow. We got to get a photo of Decal, first of all, to get him
wow!
on
Now
the
this is like a
website.
big deal. So,
Yeah.
so
He's been the kind of a theme of our road trips.
So we did I think the third episode of this season was with my dad, and I knew he had worked with Decal because he had told us stories about him before, and then when I started racing, he actually worked on one of my teams a couple times, and Dad came to watch one of the races, and he was like, "Holy shit, Decal's still around?" I'm like, "Yeah, he works on my car." He's like, "Whoa, I don't know about that, like easy." And so I had him. I go, define what Decal is. So you probably know him from back in the day too. So
Yeah.
I want your rendition of what Decal is. I'm trying to make this guy a fan legend because he's
He
just,
is
he's
a
just
fan legend.
Well, he's an internal legend for sure.
Yeah.
But we need to get him. We need to boost
Dude.
up his story.
So we would see him hitchhiking to the races, and we would like we didn't see him.
Yeah, right,
You know what I
right.
mean? And I feel bad now knowing.
Nah, get out of here.
but
No, I didn't feel bad. No, I did actually. We'd go flying by him at 80, and the guy's hitchhiking.
Right.
And sometimes he would beat us to California.
That's what my dad said. That's the same
That is
story.
Yeah, how is that possible?
Right.
I haven't talked to your
right,
dad. And
Right. I literally am like, this is so perfect because
Yeah.
it was none of this is
Because
staged.
that's how it was. He loved it so much that he would literally hitchhike to California.
Yeah.
And you tell people that now, and people are like, bull.
Right.
I'd see him in Nebraska.
Yeah. Just I don't know.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And he saved Max Jones's life.
He
All right.
saved Max Jones's life,
Spill the
and Max
goods.
Jones will tell you that.
Okay.
Is there anybody in the sport that you raced against that you admire that you've probably never spoken to?
I admire Will Moody.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
You know Will Moody?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Will Moody, I think if you asked him at some point, he hated me.
Okay.
Literally hated me. Maybe. I don't know what he would say, but I think he genuinely didn't dislike me.
Yeah.
We competed very hard, maybe too hard.
Sure.
Okay, and some of those years I'm not proud of how I raced. Okay, I'm sure you've raced like that, and you get done and you go home and you go, man, that wasn't what I should have done.
Yeah.
And there was some of those days, and probably more than there should have been. But I respected what he did and what he brought to the table, and I'd like to have a beer with him sometime
Right.
and just
Just kind of clear it.
yeah.
What about a driver that you never got to work with that you would have liked to?
Mark Donahue.
Oh, yeah, great answer.
Okay.
So Tommy and I were able to beat his record, and it was almost bittersweet, right? We won 11 races and he won 10.
Yeah.
And he wasn't there to defend himself, right? You know, it's
Right.
sort of the way I felt. But, things are made to be broken, right? People
Sure.
are supposed to, And I think he'd been okay with how he did it, I hope.
Right.
So when IRL started, one of Catherine Legg's great regrets was that she actually had an IRL offer for a lot of money that she ended up declining. Is there anything like that in your career where you had something maybe you wish you could have taken? Or something
There's no
on the
regrets.
fence? Right.
Okay, I wouldn't change anything. Every decision that was made, either by me or by somebody else that changed my career, I'm super fortunate for all of that.
Yeah.
There was one time I was sitting in the front seat of a rent-a-car with Don Panos.
Yeah.
So it was the Batmobile.
Right.
The car went out and did like 3 laps, broke down. I went out there and wired it with an extension cord and got it running, and it ran 7 more hours. But when I came back, they had cleaned the pits out.
Oh, because
They
like,
were
we're
done.
done. Yeah.
And Don never forgot that, and he tried to hire me 2 different times, and I didn't go to work for him, and I, like I said, I would never change that. It would have never worked with Don and myself the way that his ideas are, but I was more than flattered though, more than once with him, trying to hire me.
Well, in some programs you can't fight City Hall.
Right, exactly.
So yeah.
So, in closing,
Yeah, I mean, I'm good.
thanks for meeting with us.
Awesome.
Very, very cool.
Thanks for having me.
Funny thing was, is like I was telling Sean, I'm like, this is going to be good because he doesn't seem to around. When he calls me, he's like, Dan Binks, what's going on? I'm like, yes, sir, here I am. All right, let's talk. So they're like, hey, who's this? What do I need?
I was good when we walked in the bar.
What's that?
As soon as we walked in the bar, I was like, oh, this is good work.
This is going to be just
good.
fine.
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing too well on trivia. We haven't answered a
Yeah.
single question.
Yeah, I haven't even
And
heard
they
it.
don't have the big guy. I don't know if they're going to win tonight.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
We should have signed up.
We could have done it.
Signed up, but oh well.
Better to
We
say
were
we
gonna
could have
lose
won
anyway.
than lost. Yeah.
Hey, this way we're not losers.
Yeah, that's
Boom.
right. Yeah, we
All
didn't
right.
That's right.
Yeah. Where do you see your racing career going? Do you see GM moving you? Now, I'm not trying to make you say anything you can or can't say, but obviously there's a big push for the future of DPI with GM.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
And you're not doing that. You're Corvette, and that's it.
I like cars with real doors.
Yeah. Okay.
It's been really good to me.
Yeah.
Unless we're racing GTP again.
Right.
Where they got 1,000 horsepower engines and all that.
Yeah.
For me, the most fun cars of all times are Trans Am cars.
Yeah.
100-mile races, either you got enough or you don't.
Yeah.
And, our 2-hour and 45-minute races are sort of like that. They're awesome pit stops and, real racing for a short period of time. I like the long races, but let's face it, I've done, I don't know,
Yeah.
60 24-hour races.
That 40-degree chill at Daytona at 4 a.m. gets a little bit old.
I don't even. It's weird. I don't think about that stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. If it's not the race part, I don't think
You
about
notice
it.
it, sure.
I try not to. I can't think of a time where I was cold or.
Right.
I just don't. That part of my body doesn't think about that.
Yeah.
There's not room.
You're game face at that
When
point.
you're
Yeah.
to
So
a fault.
Sean walks into the pits at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning at Daytona, and he's like, "Hey, Dan, you're going to be like laser
No,
through him, like
no, I'd-
busy, not now."
I'd probably say, hey, what's up,
Yeah.
or whatever.
You're not
but
going
I-
to remember me. Let's face it. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
One of the things that Tommy praised you for was that he said if he ever had the choice of anybody in the world to be his guy, it would be Dan Binks, because Adrian knew he won't be able to start the car. He's like, I'd take that guy anywhere. And the other thing he said, which I thought was interesting, because as a mechanic, there were times where the cars I worked on in the 24 hours had big wrecks, and you had to put them back together and get it back out there. And Tommy said that obviously you're there to win, and you love that, and you love like everything going to plan. But he's like, he almost loves it as much when hits the fan and everybody has to scramble and work together and fix a big problem. It's just slightly as much fun for you than when you get to win a race.
Yeah, it's almost a sickness, right?
Yeah.
Because what that does is all the preparation at the shop
Yeah.
comes into play. If the guy didn't do it at home, right?
Yeah.
If the part in the box isn't ready to go,
Right.
you can't change. There's one of those posters from the Corvette. I don't want to keep hitting that. But we wrecked gigantic.
Yeah.
And I think it says we changed 81 parts. Okay, they changed the clutch.
Yeah.
I mean, he burned it up trying to drive it home. We changed literally everything. And you don't find out how good a race team you have until you have days like that.
Right.
Okay? Nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
We wrecked our car big time, and we got it all back together, and we finished, and we didn't have to work on it again.
Right.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the success. If you have to go out and come back in and work on it and fix
Yeah,
it,
just keep going.
I don't really like that. That's a
Yeah.
failure in my book, right?
Sure.
So we changed, like I said, I think it was 81 parts on, it was Oliver's car. I can't remember what year it was. But anyways, we changed all those parts, and he went out, and he went down the back straightaway, the fastest mile an hour for the whole event.
Yeah.
And I said, Oliver, dude, we just changed all these parts. You need to feel it out. And he
Right.
said, well, I was mad, And I was like, yeah, I know, but we just changed 81
like, easy
parts.
does it, kid.
Yeah, but he was doing his job and we were doing ours.
Right, right.
And I can't say enough. I'm so proud of the group of guys that we've been able to put together. and the whole group, from Jim and Gary on down, they have supported our whole group. We have Ben Johnson now as our team manager, and he's been there at Pratt & Miller for quite a long time, and he's got, a lot on his plate. But to give everybody a place to work on race cars like they've done is a dream come true for a lot of people.
Cool. Back to poop jokes. So there's a book out on Amazon.com.
Yep.
Called, once again,
Making It Faster.
Making It Fast by Dan Binks, by Dr. Dan Binks.
By Norm DeWitt and Dan Binks. Yeah.
PhD.
And it's a little choppy, but we did our best.
But the sales of that book directly help the camp that you own?
That's right. So nobody owns it.
Okay.
So and we just borrowed money to help camp.
Right.
So
Right.
nobody owns it.
Okay.
It's a 501c3.
Yep.
So and we're rocking.
Nice.
Our staff is doing really well, and the kids and everybody just really enjoy it, and we're going to get it to the point where it'll be self-sufficient and
Right.
run forever.
Cool. Well, hopefully, if you're listening to this and you want to learn more about racing in general, because I imagine it's probably pretty helpful if it's called Making It Faster, which I need to probably read.
Yeah.
But that'll directly help the camp that you support near Road America. And can somebody, if they're at Road America, just swing by the camp and see
so you
it?
just go to the office and ask somebody to give you a tour,
Yeah.
and they'll help you out.
Awesome.
No problem.
Cool. Well, hopefully we can drive some interest that way. I'm going to come check it out.
You should come check it
Yeah,
out.
for
Yeah,
sure, for
PD
sure.
said he's going to help us. So
awesome.
And Colin. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We probably can't have a Honda Civic or something, but
Can you have an NSX?
yeah,
It's pretty cool.
We probably could.
It's
The
pretty
new one-
cool.
The new one's
That's
super
what,
cool.
Well, that's what I'm driving.
Is that what you're driving
yeah.
here? You didn't park that in Hamburg
No,
Pub.
no. We have a Honda Odyssey here. It's also really cool.
Yeah.
Same
Hey,
people
you
that
didn't
worked
get
on
shot
that.
in the parking lot?
No, but if you saw some of the stickers on our car, we probably should.
Yeah, we
have,
may
like,
need to get out of here fast.
We're like, oh, we got to get out of here.
Yeah. If you don't have a jacked up truck here, you're in trouble.
Yeah, we have the minivan with
We
the
have a
Hello Kitty
minivan,
sticker
the
on
Hello
it.
Kitty sticker, and well, we'll have to show you to
Yeah.
understand the rest.
All right.
Anyways, thanks for coming. Continental's got the check.
I'm finished.
Wow, that was such a great episode. That guest really knew how to tell a story.
I couldn't agree more, Ryan. The only thing as awesome as Dan Binks giving us his time was you sitting here right next to me during this edit, putting in the time as well.
You're welcome, Sean. I'm right here.
Anyway, we are going to move on to one of our fan submissions, actually. This is someone who I had never met, never heard of, a guy named Mike Birch, who sent me some of his stuff. Thought it was pretty good, and he has an album available on Bandcamp. If you look up Mike Birch, it's B-I-R-C-H on bandcamp.com. You can check him out there. He has a pretty good album called Fact and Fiction, and here's one sample of that, a song called Gypsy Wind.
She glides around the campfire. Guitar plays soft and slow. Flames reach ever higher. Gypsy dancers' faces aglow. Voice calls out a shimmering note, begging the stars and moon to listen. It's as if time has slowed. She is one with the gypsy wind. She moves with the gypsy wind. She sings with the gypsy wind. Helplessly falling, victim drawn to her calling, hypnotized by her form, blown away by the gypsy storm. Dark hair flows, streams of night, siren song takes control. Her eyes flash to his inner fire, summoning to a gypsy soul. She moves with the gypsy wind. She sings with the gypsy wind. She moves with the gypsy wind. She is one with the gypsy wind. Helplessly falling, victim drawn to her calling, hypnotized by her form, blown away by the gypsy storm. She is one with the gypsy wind.